profound misunderstanding that has dominated spiritual seeking for centuries lies in the assumption that true vision and enlightenment require turning away from the complexities of everyday existence, as though the divine could only be found by rejecting the world rather than discovering how to perceive its sacred essence through transformed awareness. Sri Aurobindo's revolutionary understanding completely dismantles this false dichotomy, revealing that authentic spiritual vision is not about escaping the challenges and responsibilities of contemporary life, but rather about learning to illumine them from within, through the development of consciousness that can recognize divine presence operating through every circumstance, relationship, and activity that comprises our human experience. This inside-out transformation changes everything about how we approach daily existence, converting what previously felt like obstacles to spiritual development into opportunities for conscious awakening and meaningful contribution to the evolutionary unfolding of awareness itself. The beauty of this approach lies in its recognition that the very situations we might instinctively want to escape, demanding family responsibilities, challenging work environments, complex social dynamics, and even personal struggles with health, finances, or emotional difficulties, are actually perfect laboratories for developing the spiritual capacities we most need to cultivate. When we understand that consciousness evolution happens through engagement rather than withdrawal, every conversation becomes a chance to practice presence and authentic communication. Every deadline becomes an opportunity to develop inner calm under pressure, and every conflict becomes a classroom for learning patience, understanding, and creative problem-solving that serves everyone involved. Rather than merely protecting our personal comfort and preferences, this inside-out illumination begins with the recognition that what we seek through spiritual practice already exists within us as our fundamental nature, but remains hidden beneath layers of conditioning, reactivity, and habitual ways of perceiving ourselves and the world that create the illusion of separation between spiritual and ordinary experience. The divine consciousness we long to touch through meditation or prayer is actually the aware presence that observes all our thoughts, emotions, and sensations without being limited or defined by any of them. This recognition doesn't diminish the value of formal spiritual practices, but rather extends their benefits into every moment of waking existence by helping us remember that the peace, love, and wisdom we cultivate during quiet contemplation can operate continuously through conscious attention and intentional alignment with our deeper nature. The practical application of this understanding transforms our relationship with challenge and difficulty from sources of stress and spiritual obstacles into invitations for deeper awakening and service. The parent managing multiple children's needs, whilst juggling household responsibilities, discovers that conscious presence during chaotic moments creates more harmony and effectiveness than attempting to control external circumstances through stress and hurried activity. The individual facing financial uncertainty learns that inner stability and creative problem-solving emerge more readily when challenges are met from trust in larger intelligence rather than fear-based thinking that narrows perception and limits access to innovative solutions that serve multiple needs simultaneously. Perhaps most importantly, this approach reveals that illuminating life from the inside out naturally serves purposes larger than personal spiritual development, creating ripple effects that benefit families, communities, and the collective human endeavor to create more conscious and compassionate forms of civilization. When we operate from inner light rather than reactive patterns, our presence becomes healing and inspiring for others who are struggling with their own challenges and seeking their own pathways to greater meaning and authentic joy. The quality of attention we bring to conversations can help others feel genuinely heard and valued. The calm we maintain during stressful situations can provide stability that enables more creative and effective responses to shared problems. The love we express through practical service can remind others of their own capacity for generosity and connection. This inside-out transformation doesn't require dramatic lifestyle changes or the abandonment of current responsibilities and relationships, but rather invites us to bring a quality of consciousness and intention to whatever circumstances we already inhabit. The morning routine becomes a gentle awakening ritual that establishes clear purpose and receptive awareness for the day ahead. The commute to work becomes moving meditation that prepares us for conscious engagement with colleagues and tasks. Even challenging conversations become opportunities to practice speaking from truth and listening from genuine care rather than defensive reactivity or the need to prove ourselves right or superior to others who may hold different perspectives or priorities. The vision that emerges through this practice is not otherworldly or detached from practical concerns, but rather deeply engaged with life whilst perceiving it through awareness that recognizes the sacred dimension underlying all apparent multiplicity and change. This enables us to remain fully committed to excellence in our responsibilities whilst holding outcomes lightly, to love others deeply whilst respecting their freedom to make their own choices and learn from their own experiences, and to work creatively for positive change whilst trusting in intelligence larger than our individual understanding to guide the ultimate direction of personal and collective evolution. The sustainability of this approach becomes evident as we discover that illuminating life from within actually increases, rather than depletes our energy and enthusiasm for engaging with whatever challenges and opportunities arise. Instead of feeling torn between spiritual aspirations and worldly obligations, we find that consciousness and practical effectiveness enhance each other in an upward spiral of growth and service that brings coherence and joy to all aspects of our existence. The vision we develop through this practice doesn't separate us from others, but rather connects us more deeply with the shared human experience of seeking meaning, love, and authentic contribution to something greater than individual survival and accumulation. The development of this inside-out vision reveals itself through the gradual emergence of what we might call conscious perception, the capacity to see divine intelligence operating through the apparent chaos and complexity of contemporary existence without losing practical effectiveness or becoming detached from legitimate human concerns and responsibilities. This transformed way of seeing doesn't ignore or minimize genuine difficulties and injustices that require attention and action, but rather perceives them within a larger context of evolutionary intelligence that can work through human consciousness to address problems at their roots, rather than merely managing symptoms or creating temporary solutions that generate new challenges elsewhere. The person who develops this inner vision naturally becomes more rather than less effective in worldly affairs because their actions emerge from deeper understanding and broader perspective than what purely individual intelligence can provide. This conscious perception extends into our relationships with others, transforming interactions from attempts to get our needs met through manipulation or negotiation into opportunities for mutual awakening and collaborative creativity that serves everyone's authentic development and well-being. The spouse or partner becomes not merely someone who provides emotional security or practical support, but a fellow soul with whom we can explore the depths of love and understanding that transcend personal preferences and conditional agreements. Children become not projects to be shaped according to adult expectations and anxieties, but unique expressions of consciousness, seeking their own authentic forms of learning and contribution that we can support through presence, wisdom, and unconditional care, rather than control and demand for compliance. The workplace transforms from a venue for earning money and advancing personal career goals into a laboratory for developing skills and qualities that serve both individual growth and collective flourishing. Colleagues become opportunities for practicing patience, collaboration, and creative problem-solving, rather than competitors for limited resources or recognition. Even challenging supervisors or difficult customers become teachers of equanimity and skillful communication that help us develop capacities we might never have discovered in easier circumstances. Projects and deadlines become chances to explore the balance between effort and surrender, between personal excellence and trust in outcomes that serve purposes larger than what our individual planning and control can achieve. Perhaps most remarkably, this inside-out vision reveals that the very aspects of modern life that seem most problematic, technology, urbanization, global interconnectedness, rapid change, and increasing complexity, actually provide unprecedented opportunities for conscious evolution and spiritual development that weren't available to previous generations. The internet that can either isolate us in bubbles of confirmation bias or connect us with wisdom teachers and spiritual communities across the globe. The diversity of contemporary society that can either trigger tribal reactions or expand our understanding of the infinite ways consciousness can express itself through different cultures, perspectives, and life experiences. The pace of change that can either overwhelm us with anxiety or teach us to remain centered, whilst adapting creatively to new circumstances and opportunities. The environmental challenges that face our generation become not merely problems to solve through better technology and policy, but invitations to develop the kind of consciousness that can perceive the sacred nature of the earth and our intimate connection with all life, leading to lifestyle choices and collective actions that emerge from love and reverence rather than fear and guilt. The social and political divisions that seem to threaten democratic institutions become opportunities for developing the capacity to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, whilst maintaining clarity about values and principles that serve justice and collective well-being rather than narrow group interests or ideological purity. This transformation of perception naturally leads to what we might call effortless engagement, the capacity to remain fully involved with life's demands and opportunities, whilst maintaining inner peace and clarity that don't depend on external circumstances, conforming to our preferences or expectations. This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent to outcomes, but rather learning to act from inspiration and wisdom rather than compulsion and anxiety, creating space for creative solutions to emerge that couldn't be accessed through forcing or worry. Work flows more easily when approached as conscious service rather than obligation or personal achievement. Relationships deepen when based on genuine care rather than need or expectation. Creative projects unfold more naturally when approached as collaboration with universal intelligence rather than attempts to prove our talent or gain recognition. The ripple effects of this inside-out illumination extend far beyond personal transformation to influence the quality of every environment and community we participate in. Families experience greater harmony when one member learns to remain centered during conflicts and respond from wisdom rather than reactive emotion. Workplaces become more collaborative and productive when someone consistently brings presence and constructive attitudes to meetings and projects. Neighborhoods and communities benefit when individuals approach civic responsibilities and social challenges from consciousness that seeks solutions serving everyone rather than advancing particular interests at others' expense. The collective implications of this approach become particularly significant when we recognize that the major challenges facing humanity, environmental degradation, economic inequality, political polarization, and social fragmentation, require the kind of consciousness that can think and act from connection rather than separation, from long-term wisdom rather than short-term advantage, and from concerned for collective well-being, rather than narrows. Each person who develops the capacity to illumine life from within contributes to the emergence of this needed consciousness, creating conditions where genuinely sustainable and just solutions to shared challenges can arise. This understanding dissolves the artificial boundary between personal, spiritual development and social responsibility, revealing that the most effective contribution we can make to healing our world is often the inner work that enables us to respond to challenges from wisdom rather than fear, from love rather than hatred, and from creative intelligence rather than defensive reactivity. The vision that emerges through this practice naturally extends care and concern to all life, whilst maintaining the practical effectiveness needed to address specific problems and opportunities that arise within our particular circumstances and capabilities. What moves me most deeply about this inside-out approach to spiritual vision is recognizing that it validates rather than dismisses the instinct to remain engaged with life whilst seeking deeper meaning and authentic transformation. If you sense that true spirituality must somehow include rather than escape the beautiful complexity of human existence, if you felt called to find the sacred within rather than beyond your current circumstances and relationships, then you're already beginning to develop the kind of vision that can illumine any situation from within. This isn't just another spiritual technique or philosophy. It's a way of being that honors both our human responsibilities and our divine nature, creating bridges between inner development and outer service that make the spiritual path both practical and transformative. I'd be deeply honored if you'd join our exploration by subscribing to this channel. But what touches my heart even more is knowing that your own journey of discovering the sacred within ordinary life contributes to humanity's collective awakening to the possibility of living as conscious expressions of divine love and wisdom, whilst remaining fully engaged with the challenges and opportunities of contemporary existence. What moments in your daily routine have surprised you with their potential for spiritual depth and conscious awakening? And how has your understanding of spiritual vision changed as you've explored the possibility of finding the divine within rather than beyond your current circumstances? The ultimate realization that emerges through sustained practice of inside-out illumination is that what we initially sought as personal spiritual vision gradually reveals itself as conscious participation in the evolutionary unfolding of divine consciousness through the medium of human experience and creativity. This recognition transforms our entire understanding of why we're here and what our individual lives contribute to the larger patterns of meaning and purpose that connect all existence in an intricate web of mutual support and creative collaboration. The vision that begins as a personal quest for peace and understanding evolves into recognition that our individual awakening serves universal awakening, and that the consciousness we develop through engaging consciously with our particular circumstances contributes to the emergence of more aware and compassionate forms of human civilization. This evolutionary dimension of inside-out vision reveals that the challenges and opportunities of contemporary life are not random occurrences or personal tests, but rather precise conditions through which consciousness learns to express greater wisdom, creativity, and love under the complex pressures and possibilities that characterize our historical moment. The technology that connects us globally whilst threatening privacy and authentic communication. The environmental crisis that forces recognition of our interdependence with all life, whilst offering opportunities for innovative cooperation and sustainable living. The cultural diversity that can either trigger fear and division or expand our understanding of the infinite ways consciousness can express itself through different traditions and perspectives. Each situation we encounter becomes meaningful not only for what it teaches us personally, but for how our conscious response contributes to humanity's collective learning about how to live together, wisely and creatively on a finite planet with increasingly powerful tools and capabilities. The parent who learns to remain centered whilst guiding children through developmental challenges contributes to the emergence of family patterns that support rather than suppress authentic self-expression and emotional intelligence. The colleague who maintains integrity and collaborative spirit in competitive work environments demonstrates possibilities for economic activity that serves rather than exploits human creativity and natural resources. Perhaps most beautifully, this expanded vision reveals that illuminating life from within naturally generates what we might call sacred activism, engagement with social and environmental challenges that emerges from love and wisdom rather than anger and fear, creating more sustainable and effective approaches to change that address root causes, rather than merely protesting symptoms. The consciousness that can remain peaceful during personal difficulties naturally extends this peace into conflicted situations involving others. The creativity that emerges through spiritual practice flows into innovative solutions for practical problems that serve multiple stakeholders rather than advancing particular interests at others' expense. The love that develops through inner work expresses itself through service that honors the dignity and potential of all beings, rather than attempting to impose solutions based on limited understanding or ideological certainty. This sacred activism doesn't require abandoning personal responsibilities or becoming a full-time social reformer, but rather bringing consciousness and compassion to whatever roles and relationships give our lives structure and meaning. The student who approaches education as preparation for meaningful contribution rather than mere career advancement. The retiree who shares accumulated wisdom and skills through mentoring or community service. The artist who creates work that inspires and heals rather than merely entertaining or shocking. Each person's unique circumstances become opportunities for expressing divine consciousness through forms of service that couldn't emerge in any other way. The integration of personal vision with collective service that characterizes mature spiritual development creates what Sri Aurobindo envisioned as the emergence of a new form of human being, individuals who operate from spiritual consciousness whilst remaining fully engaged with practical responsibilities and creative opportunities. These evolved humans don't possess supernatural powers or exist in states of permanent bliss, but rather embody qualities of wisdom, love, and creative intelligence that can navigate complexity without being overwhelmed, engage with challenge without being defeated, and maintain hope and constructive action even in difficult circumstances that might paralyze or discourage those operating from more limited perspectives. The vision that guides such beings is simultaneously personal and universal, individual and collective, immediate and eternal. They can focus completely on particular tasks, whilst maintaining awareness of larger purposes and longer-term consequences. They can love specific people deeply whilst recognizing all beings as expressions of the same consciousness they discover within themselves. They can work effectively for positive change whilst trusting outcomes to intelligence greater than their individual understanding and control. This represents not the end of human evolution, but rather its next phase, the emergence of a species capable of conscious cooperation with the evolutionary intelligence that creates galaxies, ecosystems, and human communities with equal care and creativity. The hope that emerges from this vision is not naive optimism that ignores genuine difficulties, but mature confidence based on recognition that consciousness itself is creative and resilient, constantly developing new capacities to meet whatever challenges arise in the course of evolutionary unfolding. The same intelligence that enabled life to emerge from matter and awareness to emerge from life is available to guide humanity through current crises, toward forms of civilization that support rather than threaten the flourishing of consciousness and creativity throughout our planetary home and beyond. As we conclude this exploration into the profound difference between escaping life and illuminating it from within, my heart overflows with gratitude for every soul who recognizes that authentic spiritual vision serves rather than abandons the world, and that our individual awakening to divine consciousness represents not personal achievement, but conscious participation in the ongoing creation of more beautiful and functional forms of existence for all beings. The vision that Sri Aurobindo described over a century ago has never been more relevant or urgently needed than in our current moment, when humanity must learn to operate from consciousness rather than unconsciousness if we are to successfully navigate global challenges and fulfill our potential as a wise and caring species. If these insights about inside-out illumination have touched something authentic in your own spiritual seeking, if you can sense the possibility of finding the sacred within rather than beyond your current circumstances, whilst remaining fully engaged with life's demands and opportunities, then you're already embodying the vision that can transform both individual experience and collective possibilities simultaneously. I would be deeply moved if you'd continue this exploration with us by subscribing to our channel. But what inspires me most is hearing about your own discoveries along this path of conscious living. What experiences have taught you most about the difference between escaping life and illuminating it from within? How have you found ways to maintain spiritual awareness whilst meeting demanding responsibilities and navigating complex relationships? What moments have shown you glimpses of the sacred dimension that exists within ordinary activities and circumstances? Please share your experiences, insights, and questions in the comments below. Your journey of illuminating life from within lights the way for all of us who are learning that the spiritual path leads not away from the world, but deeper into conscious engagement with existence itself as an expression of infinite creativity and love, seeking ever greater forms of beauty, wisdom, and compassionate service through the magnificent adventure of human consciousness, evolving toward its divine potential.